welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, hi, my name is Anna, and in today's video we are going to be talking about our favorite books. Those books that marked us until today, those books that just really fill our souls and that just gave us life. Those books that we would do anything, and I mean anything, to read for the first time again, because those are just the best books. And I really just want to talk about some of my favorite books of all time, some books that I would literally sell my soul to read for the first time again, and I would even wipe my memory, okay? I would wipe my memory completely just so I could feel all of the joy of reading these books for the first time. And this is why I usually say, whenever you're reading a book for the first time, please enjoy the ride, savor it, read it slowly, because you're never going to be able to recreate that feeling. You're never going to be able to just immerse yourself in that world once again without knowing anything. So always enjoy when you're reading a book for the first time. But without further ado, here are a few books that I would sell my soul to read for the first time again. And let us start off strong with A Game of Thrones by George R. Martin. I read this book, I think, January or February of this year, and I would give anything to read this book again. And not only this book, I would also give so much to read A Storm of Swords, because I couldn't really choose between these two. And the reason why it's because, Game of Thrones is what started it all. It's the first book in the series, and I'm not going to give you guys a synopsis because everyone and their mother already knows about A Song of Ice and Fire. But it just started the journey for me. But A Storm of Swords is just literally the best book that I've read in my entire life until today. Until today, I have never read a book as good as A Storm of Swords. This book just had everything. It was a culmination of everything. The plot lines, the storylines, the narrative, the writing, the characters, everything was just done to perfection. And I fear that nothing is going to beat this book. Genuinely, when I finished reading it, I was like, I need to reread this. I need to reread this. And the only reason why I did it is because I do have the goal of finishing, A Song of Ice and Fire this year. And because I am a slow reader, I do need to, keep up with that goal. So I couldn't really reread this. But I know for sure that I am going to reread A Storm of Swords next year or probably the year after. I still don't know. But I just know it's going to be a reread for me in the near future. Because, like I said, this book was just perfection. I can't even explain it. When you love a book so much that you just can't really explain why you do. And also because it is the third book in the series, so I can't really say much. So these two books I would just absolutely love to read for the first time again. A Game of Thrones, not because, it's amazing, but not as good as A Storm of Swords, but it was, the beginning of everything. And I just got so addicted immediately. And I just, it's just that feeling of, oh my god, I'm going to be obsessed with a new series, and I really want that back. I want that back, and I wish I could read these two books for the first time again. And now I'm going to be talking about a trilogy that is very, very special to me, and that is The Bone Witch by Chupeco. Listen, people, I read this trilogy for the first time in 2020 that was recommended to me by my boyfriend. My boyfriend found this trilogy, and he was like, please read this. I know you're going to love this. And oh my god, was he right. Please get you a man that knows you so deeply, because he absolutely nailed it with this trilogy. I had never heard of this trilogy before, not even he did, but he did so much digging because he knows I like necromancy magic, he knows I like witches, he knows I like, a very dark atmosphere with some politics in it. And even though this is a YA trilogy, the first book does feel quite YA, but then it does grow a little bit. I don't think, and I wouldn't consider this an adult fantasy, but, it does mature as the book and the series progress. But it was just amazing. This book was literally written for me. I don't care what anyone says. This was written for me. This is my entire personality. If anyone, came into my house and asked me, hey, Anna, what is the book that, just encapsulates you as a person? Bone Witch. Bone Witch, my boyfriend just absolutely nailed it with this one. And I remember reading this for the first time back when I was in college, and I would read this whenever I had the time to. And just to give you guys some context, before I became a very consistent reader, I was the type of person that I didn't like reading when I was, in college, because I was already reading a lot for college, and I was just, tired, and I didn't really want to have hobbies that interfered with my studying, because I don't know why, I was just so obsessed with studying and having good grades. And so I usually never read when I was in school, but this book, I just could not put down. I would read for 5 minutes. I didn't care. I would read in any, nook and cranny that I could find in my schedule. I did not care. I was always, always, always reading this book, and the trilogy, of course, because I was addicted. I was so hooked, and everything, like I said, just felt so me. And I wish I could read this for the first time. And just to give you guys, a little bit of a perspective of how much I love this book, I've read this 4 times. Yeah, I've read this trilogy 4 freaking times, and it does hit every time, but nothing like the first time. And in this book, if you don't know, we follow Tia, and in this world you do have Ashas, and Ashas, they are essentially witches. You know, they can perform magic and use runes, any type of runes. You have a lot of like elemental runes, for example, fire, water, air, earth. You also have other runes like shields, just, you know, other runes that don't really necessarily fit into a category. This is a very, you know, a soft magic system. You do have some rules because, for example, you do have Dark Ashes, the Bone Witches, and Tia discovers that she is a Bone Witch after resurrecting her brother. And the Dark Ashes, you know, they are not very well seen. They suffer from a lot of discrimination by society because people, obviously, they are afraid of Dark Ashes because they meddle with dead, they can resurrect the dead, control the dead even. So a lot of people don't really like Bone Witches, and Bone Witches, they can only use dark runes. So they cannot use any other rune, elemental rune, shields, anything other than dark runes they cannot use. And of course, all the other ashes cannot use dark runes as well. So this is a very strict rule. So I do say that this magic system is soft but hard at the same time. It's a mixture of both. And of course, after finding out that she is a Bone Witch, Tia goes to the capital to learn how to become an Asha, because obviously they go to school, they have to learn how to control their powers. But not only that, this is very similar to the geisha culture. They also learn how to dance, how to sing, how to perform, how to serve tea, all those things, and they have to represent their school while serving the nobles. For example, if a noble hires one of the Asha, they get paid, and some of that money goes to the school as well. So it's just this whole thing. And of course, a lot of things are going to be happening at school while Tia is there, because not every person loves Bone Witches, so she's going to be blamed for a lot of things. And not only that, there are some dark forces are trying to find something and create something that will make them immortal. So I'm not going to say much more, but I just absolutely love this book. And if you love necromancy, witches, if you love a little bit of politics, because this is going to, you know, become a little bit political with the big quest, then I would highly recommend this book. This first one, it is very much of a setup for the next books, but I promise you, this is amazing, and I just wish I could read this for the first time. And then we have also one of my favorite series of all time, which is The Faithful and the Fallen. And here, in this one, I also don't really know which one to choose, but I'm going to choose Ruin, which is the third book. And listen, I can't really talk too much about it, but it was amazing. It was amazing, and this book is really big. I think this book is 600, 700 pages. I don't know for certain now, but it felt so freaking fast. I just absolutely loved this. It did not feel long at all, and I loved the plot twist at the end. I wasn't really expecting it, and it hit me so freaking hard because I got so upset. I remember getting so upset at some characters, and I was like, how dare you do this to these people, to these poor children? How dare you lie? And it was just amazing. Okay, I can't really say too much about it, like I said, because this is the third book, but the writing, the characters, everything just felt so good. And like I said, just the entire build up to that one moment, amazing. And what made this even more amazing was the fact that I buddy read this entire series with my boyfriend, and he also loved it. So we were always talking about it, and I just wish I could read this for the first time. But the first book in the series is Malice, and in this book we follow Corbin. He's a normal 14-year-old boy that is going to be, faced with a certain prophecy that he is the one that's going to save the banished lands from evil, from certain creatures, demon-like creatures, because there is one big evil guy, let's just say, that he's threatening to come back and threatening to conquer all of the banished lands and destroy everything that they know. So Corbin, he's a little bit taken aback because he's like, what do you mean, a chosen one, there's a prophecy? But it's so funny because the way that John Gwynne plays with this prophecy trope is that you have a prophecy for good and for evil. So you have a chosen one for the good side and chosen one for the bad side. And you have some characters that they truly believe that they're doing the right thing, and they don't know that they are, on the wrong side of things. Let's just say it like that. Let's just put it like this. So in the beginning of the book, you kind of know who's the chosen one, but you're kind of uncertain as well. You're like, it could be this one, but it does feel like Corbin is the chosen one. That's why I'm saying it is, because you're just going to guess it straight away. But I just loved how he played with the fact that one of the characters truly believes that they're doing the right thing, but they're not. And when they find out that they're not doing the good thing, they still continue. They're still like, you know what? It is what it is. I'm too deep into this. I can't just back off, and I can't just back away just now. And I love that. That is something that I loved about this series as well, The Faithful and the Fallen, was just this particular character. Not just him, because everyone around him, they truly believed that he was the chosen one. He was like, oh my God, like he's our savior. He's going to save us all. He's going to help us all. We're all going to follow him. And then they just followed him into disaster. So I just absolutely love this, and it does have a very big feel of classic fantasy. So if you do love classical fantasy, with that medieval setting, with the chosen one trope, you have also a coming of age trope, which I absolutely love the coming of age trope as well, then you're absolutely going to love this series. If you haven't read it, please give it a chance. And it does have a lot of Celtic mythology, so if you're also interested in that, then highly recommend this book. And I can only wish that I could read these books for the very first time. And the first book that I'm going to be mentioning is The Final Empire, and this book also holds a very special place in my heart because this was the first trilogy that I read inside of the Cosmere. And I read this back in 2022, and I was gobsmacked. I didn't really understand the hype behind Brandon Sanderson, and I didn't really, I've been reading consistently since 2021, and I took 1 year to pick up one of his books because I just felt like, okay, he's so overhyped. What if he's not good? And I was just afraid that I was not going to like any of his books. But I was so wrong. And I wish I had read this sooner. And obviously I read this trilogy, I think 2 times now. And I do plan on doing a lot more rereads because, like I said, this was just my first introduction to the Cosmere. This was the first thing that I read, and I just fell in love with Sanderson's writing. I fell in love with the worlds that he created, with the magic systems. Everything was just so unique and so different from what I had read until then, and I just loved it. This book means so much to me. It really does, because just like The Bone Witch by Chupeco, I was reading this, during college, and I was reading in every nook and cranny that I could find in my schedule. I was reading when I was going to college on the bus, and I get sick, okay? I get motion sick whenever I read on buses, cars, anything, and I didn't care. I genuinely did not care. I would read on my tiny phone, on my tiny screen, and I just did not care. I just had to keep on reading. I had to keep on knowing what was going to happen to these characters, what was happening, because I just loved them, and I just fell in love with these characters. And I think that is one of, the strengths of the Mistborn trilogy is the characters. I just love how Sanderson created just multi-dimensional characters. They have flaws, they have qualities, and just the way that they grew, and how Sanderson created a debate with all of the themes that he wanted to incorporate in this book with the characters, and how they're not good, but they're also not bad. How Vin was, I don't know, I just absolutely loved it. And I don't want to, give so much away, but for example, in this first book, we meet Vin, and she is a thief. She's a thief, and she's living with, in the streets with a group of thieves as well, and she is just trying her very best to survive. And she has special powers, because in this world, some people that consume metals have certain powers. Now, those powers are only, exclusive to the nobles. But sometimes you do have the nobles that, they mess around with the Ska people, which are, the lowest of the low in this empire. They are pretty much slaves. They have zero rights whatsoever. They belong to the nobles. And sometimes, like I said, they mess around, and you do have a half Ska and half noble. And what happens is some Ska people actually have powers, but the Lord Ruler always hunts them down. So they can't really show that they have powers, and Vin is one of those people. She discovers that she does have powers. But Kelsier actually finds out that she has powers, and Kelsier, he is also a thief, but he's, a better thief. And what I mean by this is he does have, a group of thieves as well, but they are very well known, and they are actually very good at their job. And all of Kelsier's people, they all have one power. But you do have people in this world that are called Mistborn, and these people, they can ingest any metal and have all of the powers. Exactly. So in this world, you have people, usually they ingest one type of metal and they have one power. For example, if you can burn pewter, you have a lot of strength, resistance, etc. But as a Mistborn, you can burn all of the metals and have all of the powers. And Kelsier actually discovers Vin, and he discovers that Vin is also a Mistborn. So he recruits her, and Vin is like, okay, you know what? They seem like a better people and a better group than the one that I was with previously. And we just find Vin, being so suspicious and not trusting anyone, to actually finding a family with Kelsier and trusting all of the people that are in that band. It's just so heartwarming. Like I said, it's just really heartwarming to see this 16-year-old girl that was always so scared, never trusted anyone. She was always hiding, she never talked, she never gave her own opinion, to someone that actually found a family with Kelsier and all of the other crew members. And of course, we do have a heist. This is a heist book, and what they're trying to do is destroy the Empire. They're trying to steal the Empire from the Emperor, and it's very hard because the Lord Ruler has been alive for 800 years. Exactly. So people actually look at him like he's some sort of god, because he's been alive for many years, and Thus ensues a heist of trying to steal the Empire, and you have to read to find out if they actually manage it. And like I said, I just absolutely love this so much. And the other books are even greater in my opinion. I love, I think my favorite out of the trilogy has to be the third one, but this one is what started it all, and I wish I could read this book for the first time. And of course, I could not end this video without mentioning the Stormlight Archive series. Now, this one I am also divided by The Way of Kings and Words of Radiance, because Words of Radiance, in my opinion, is the best book in the Stormlight Archive. I absolutely love it. It's a 6 out of 5 stars for me. It was just everything that I wanted and more. I just loved where the story was going. I loved how Brandon Sanderson was crafting the characters and how we were getting to know them even better. And just there's a lot of moments here that Calden has that are just top tier. But The Way of Kings, just like a Game of Thrones, it's where it all started. And this is such a banger of a beginning for a very epic saga. It is so good. I just loved every second of it. And it is slow, okay? It's very slow paced, but I like that. And I also think that it was needed for such a big saga, because we had to get to know these characters. We needed to get to know them to a very deep and personal level, because the Stormlight Archive, this series is mostly about mental health. It's mostly about, it's kind of like a character study. So you did need to know these characters to the bone. Like, you had to know everything about them in order for you to create an emotional connection with them and grow with them and see all of their struggles, all of their problems, all of just how mental health really is depicted in these books. And I think that Brandon Sanderson did an amazing job of depicting depression, PTSD, personality disorder, anxiety, just all of the, everything basically that a human being can have is in this book, in this saga. And I just absolutely love that. And I just love the way that the world was presented to us. I love what he did with the world of Roshar, to the fauna, to the flora. Everything is just so original. The magic system, here's the thing, I do like it and I find it interesting, but I think it's way too complicated at times, and I don't really understand everything. I don't understand all of the intricacies of this magic system. I hope I'm not the only one, but still, it is very interesting to read about. And I just loved everything about The Way of Kings. Like I said, it was just the introduction to something so big and so grand. Everything felt so epic. Every single chapter, every single part, it just felt so big, and like everything was just constructed to make this huge saga. And that's what I love about The Way of Kings. But Words of Radiance, it took it up a notch. I can't really talk too much about it, because obviously it's the second book and I don't want to give spoilers. I don't know if I'm going to give you guys a synopsis for this saga, because the Stormlight Archive, it is so well known, and we do have 3 POVs, and we are in a setting of a war. Roshar is in a very big great war, and you have the Alethi against the Parshendi, and then you have 3 POVs. Like I said, you have Calden, who is a slave, and he's suffering greatly at the hands of the Alethi and because of this war. And then you have Shallan, who she's not at the war, not at the war front, but she is, a daughter of a noble, and she's trying to make sure that her house survives because her father passed away and he left a lot of debts behind. So now she has to find a way to, pay all of those debts and keep their family afloat and keep their name afloat. So for that, she tries to become an apprentice to one of the most famous scholars in this world, which is Jasna. And the reason why is because she wants to steal something from Jasna in order to pay off all of the debts. And then you have Dalinar. He is one of the high princes of the Alethi people. He is a war general, and he's fighting against the Parshendi. But he starts to have these weird visions every time you have a high storm, and he doesn't really understand those visions. He knows that it's some sort of like message for him to unite all of the high princes once more. So they just stop bickering, between each other, because obviously when you have high princes that have their own houses and their own lands, they all try to bicker in order to get more power. And Dalinar is tasked with the mission of, okay, I have to unite all of these people into just one. Us Alethi have to be just one people in order to fight the Parshendi and win this war. So very, essentially, this is just how the Stormlight Archive starts. It is, it's a very brief summary of the story. And I just, like I said, I loved it. I love The Way of Kings. I love the Words of Radiance. And I could not recommend this series enough. If you haven't read the series by, any reason, if you've never stumbled upon this series, then please give it a chance. The Stormlight Archive is a very big, epic, high fantasy series that I would absolutely recommend. And even though it is so big and it looks so intimidating, because every single book is 1,000 pages long, so I understand that it is quite intimidating. The writing, I promise you, is very simple to follow. It's very simple to understand. Brandon Sanderson doesn't have, a very flourished writing. It's not something really complex that you cannot understand. So I would highly recommend the Stormlight Archive. If you have not read, this series and you want to read a high fantasy that is very epic, then Stormlight Archive is for you. And like I said, please enjoy this, because, and like I said, said, if this is the first time reading it, then please enjoy it, because that feeling is never going to come back. And these are all of the books I would love to read for the very first time again. Of course, I do have others, but maybe if I do want to make, a part 2 of this video, then I will. And please let me know down in the comments, what are your favorite books? What are the books that you would just love to read for the first time again, that you would do literally anything to read those books for the very first time? I want to know, because it can also be one of my favorites. And also let me know if you've read any of these books down in the comments below, so I can talk to you about them, so we can talk and discuss and just have, a very friendly debate, and just kind of have that sense of community, because that is something that I truly love and adore. And remember, if you're reading one book for the very first time, please enjoy it, savor it, because that feeling will never come around again. And of course, please subscribe and like this video, because it does help my channel out a lot, and it gives me a lot of motivation and validation to keep filming these videos for you guys. And I will see you on my next one. Bye!